Greetings, this is Jim, AG6IF. Usually behind the camera, I'm going to try a technician study session, see how well this works. I'm using Gordo's technician study guides, books. I teach this class, I teach the general, and I teach the extra as well. Just going to kind of work our way through it talking. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to try this out. I don't know how well this is going to work, but we'll see how it goes. A technician class ham radio license has a number of questions. The questions on the exam are 35 questions. There's the 10 sections that need to be addressed, rules and so forth, operating procedures, and on and on. So we're going to work through this in a number of series of different parts and see how well we do. So, all right, as you're following along in this book, I'm starting on page 33, and I'm also working through Gordo's presentation materials as well. So, basically, let's see here. Who's in charge of the rules for ham radio license? And the answer is the FCC. It makes and enforces all amateur radio rules in the United States. Okay, FCC, Federal Communications Commission. What's the purpose of ham radio, amateur radio? Its purpose is to advance the skills and technical and communication phases of the radio art. It's never to be used for commercial purposes. Okay, so that is one of the questions that you will see probably. Which of the following is the purpose of amateur radio service as stated in the FCC rules and regulations? It's for advancing skills in the technical and communication phases of the radio art. Okay. So not commercial. All right. Amateur radio is never to compete with commercial radio. Allowing a person to conduct radio experiments and to communicate with other licensed hams around the world. That's the purpose. That's the permissible use of amateur radio. Which of the following is the purpose of amateur radio service? Rules and regulations is defined by the FCC. Notice they ask these questions over and over. You're probably going to get one of these. Okay, part 97. Basically, enhancing international goodwill is one of the purposes of amateur radio. All right, nothing commercial. Okay, which license classes are the new licenses currently available from the FCC? Right now, there's 3 license classes. The technician, this one, okay, the general and amateur extra. If you've got a different one, it's probably grandfathered in, but the 3 licenses that you can obtain today, technician, general, amateur extra. Once you pass your exam, how soon can you operate your transmitter? You can always operate your receiver, but how soon can you transmit? And the answer is as soon as you see your license on the FCC webpage. You can then operate your transmitter. They may or may not send you a paper copy, but as long as it's on their website, you're good to go. All right, let's see here. The term of the amateur license is 10 years. 10 years, okay? After 10 years, you have to renew your license. If you don't renew it, then there's a grace period of 2 years that you cannot operate, but you can renew it within 2 years. If you fail to renew it within 2 years, you have to take the exam over again and so forth. So always renew your license. Can you transmit while you're in the grace period? Of course not. You cannot transmit unless your license is active and not expired. During the 2-year grace period, you can renew it, but you can't transmit. All right. So you got 10 years, and then you have a 2-year grace period. All right. We're bottom of page 35. Basically, you cannot operate, of course, cannot operate while you're expired. Okay, 36. T1C11. If your license is expired and still within the allowable grace period, may you continue to operate a transmitter. You think they're worried about making sure you know this information? Of course, there's multiple questions asked different ways about this. And the answer is no. No transmitting is allowed while your license is expired. All right. What is the FCC Part 97 definition of an amateur station? Your amateur station will consist of a radio transmitting device that will be used for amateur communications. Very simple. This station can go with you in terms of, it might be a handy talkie like one of these, be a mobile radio, could be a base station, all different types. All right. Okay, that's the section. First section, topic 2. We'll work through topic 2. We're on page 39, call signs. About 19 sections we're going to go through here. We're going to catch up 5 or 6 of them in this session, and I'll try to continue if this works out okay. All right, you must give your call letters every 10 minutes while you're transmitting. If you're listening, you don't have to do anything. But if you're talking on the radio, every 10 minutes you give your call sign, and at the end of your transmission when you're all finished. That is FCC rule. You don't have to give your call sign when you first start your conversation, but it's good practice to throw your call out there and make sure that the other person knows who you are. But every 10 minutes while you're talking and at the end. All right. Simple, right? Unidentified transmissions are a big no-no. However, recent rules allow for one exception. If you're using your amateur radio license to talk to radio-controlled cars, boats, aircraft, drones are very popular. If you're using ham frequencies to work your remote-controlled devices, obviously you can't identify your signal. So they allow you to put a sticker on your transmitter. Put your call sign on a sticker on your transmitter, and that suffices for your 10-minute IDing. Okay? If you have a multimode 6-meter radio, tune around 50.800 to 51.0 megahertz, and 53.1 to 53.9 megahertz, and you may hear some strange digital signals. That might be control signals, people using ham frequencies for their remote control. Their only required identification is a label on their transmitter. Again, it's the only exception to the 10-minute rule. All right, let's see here. On page 40, the maximum power you may use for your remote control transmitter is 1 watt, just 1 watt. Okay, call signs. Ham call signs in the United States begin with the letter A, K, N, or W, and a number 0 through 9. Okay. My call sign on my shirt, A, starts with A, G6IF, AG6IF. I have, most call signs have 3 digits for technician class. When you get a higher license, a general or an extra, you can get a call sign with fewer digits. And so mine is an extra class call sign. So W3 ABC is the correct call sign for a U.S. ham radio operator. This question on the bottom of page 40. Which of the following is a valid U.S. amateur radio station call sign? Okay, the only one that's correct is W3 ABC. The rest are missing something. We're missing the number 0 through 9. We're missing a letter beginning with A, K, N, or W. All right. You may select your own call sign, a vanity call sign if you wish, just like a vanity license plate. The 0 through 9 represents the zone of the United States that you were living in when you received your license. There's different zones here. We're in zone 6 in California. 0 is kind of in the center of the country. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. So 0 through 9. You may select your own call sign under the Vanity Call Sign program. The FCC has recently reduced the price of the Vanity Call Sign to 0, which is good. Any licensed amateur may do that. Okay, let's see here. Most amateurs prefer a short, distinctive call sign, so you can get a Vanity if you want. You can also get a license plate with your call sign on there. There's a call sign that has a single letter, a number, and a single letter. That is called a special event station. W6V, Veterans Memorial Station. Nice short call sign. It's only good for certain times of the year. And you can apply for a special event call sign if you work with an organization and you want to do a special event. All right. Okay, let's see. Which of the following methods is encouraged by the FCC when identifying your station using microphone? Phone and microphone are interchangeable. A, use of a phonetic alphabet. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and so on. Sometimes it makes it easier to understand you if the conditions are poor. That's called the phonetic alphabet. International phonetic alphabet. They are recognized worldwide. Do not make up your own. Tempting, but do not do that. That shows bad form. All right. T1F12 is the question number. How many persons are required to be members of a club for a club call sign? 4. 4 people required to make up a club, a radio club, and you can apply for a call sign. The school maybe has a ham radio club or some other organization. But you have to have 4. The trustee can apply for a vanity call sign for the club, if so desired. All right, let's see here. F01, we're on the top of 44, page 44. What type of identification is being used when identifying a station on the air as race headquarters? That's called a tactical call sign. Race headquarters, I'm listening to a race right now. It's a running race in the middle of the night. It's a more than 24-hour race. And hams monitor the course to make sure somebody doesn't fall off the side of the hill. And everybody that joined the race comes in and safely. Okay, so they're using tactical call signs, race headquarters, and they've got each position labeled, like IT1, IT2, or whatever. You still must give your call sign every 10 minutes when using a tactical call sign. You're not relieved of that responsibility. Okay? Every 10 minutes, you must give your own real call sign. All right. You also must identify your call sign in English. You can use any language you like, but you must put your call sign out in English. All right, top of 45 in the Gordo's Technician Manual, this one here. Which of the following formats, the self-assigned indicator is acceptable when identifying using a microphone transmission? All right. All the choices are correct. If you can use a stroke, W3, for example, slant, W3, or slash, W3. If I'm in a 6 and I go to 3 land, okay, 3 land over by New York, and I'm going to want to tell everybody that when I'm talking my radio that I'm actually not making this magical trip all the way across the country, but I'm in New York. So I could put /W3 on the end of my call sign, and they would know I'm visiting. It's not required, but it's kind of nice. You may find that that helps avoid confusion. All right? Slant, slash, or stroke are all correct. You can use any of them. All right, let's see here. T1F08 on 45. Which indicator is required by the FCC to be transmitted after a station call sign? Required. Okay, the only one that's required if you are if you've upgraded your technician license to a general, in this case you don't have to wait to get on the air in the general frequency spectrum as long as you add onto your call sign a /AG. I think of it as already a general. It's not in the database yet, but you're telling the people that are listening to your transmission that you've already got your test has been approved and you've passed. And eventually it will go in the website, just like your technician class license will go into the FCC website maybe 10 days after you've taken your exam. So they allow you to operate early when you upgrade your license. You can't operate early as a technician when you first get your license because you don't have a call sign to reference at all. So, but that is required if you're operating in bands that you haven't yet been published for. Okay, that is the only place it's required. /M used to be required, but no longer for mobile operation, for example. And that suffix is a /KT, which is not very common nowadays. /AE, I think of already an extra, and /AG for already a general. Both of those are fairly common. You'll hear those on the air. Okay, the ITU, International Telecommunications Union, ITU. They're the group, part of the United Nations, that establishes agreed upon regulations and frequency rules for all the countries of the world that are part of the ITU. We are in Region 2. The United States is in Region 2 in South America. Region 1 and Region 3 also exist out there. Some of our territories, like Guam, for example, is not in Region 2. There may be different frequencies assignments in the different ITU regions, okay? All right, so that is a possibility. So the question that I'm referring to is, what is the ITU? And the answer is going to be a United Nations agency for information and communications technology issues. All right, and we're in Region 2 in the USA. There are differences in frequency allocations between the ITU regions. Why are frequency assignments for the U.S. stations operating maritime mobile not the same everywhere in the world? Okay, answer is amateur frequency assignments can vary among the 3 ITU regions, right? Maritime mobile is out on a ship in the ocean, all right? The ITU assures enemies are, for the most part, consistent. They're not always perfect. Some parts of the U.S., including Guam, fall in a different ITU region and have different ITU numbers than the continental USA. Okay. Let's see here. Which countries are FCC licensed amateur stations prohibited from exchanging communications? All right, there are 2 countries you may not communicate with. The first one is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea. You may also not communicate with the country, as I'll spell it, Eritrea, Eritrea. All right, those 2 countries do not allow their citizens to communicate on ham radio or with the United States. Okay, right now there's just 2. Okay, and we're on the bottom of page 46. Okay, what types of international communications are permitted by the FCC licensed amateur station? Communications incidental to the purposes of amateur service and remarks of a personal character. No commercial transmissions at all is allowed for ham radio. Okay, remarks of a personal nature. That is it. All right. Which of the following restrictions apply when a non-licensed person is allowed to speak to a foreign station using a station under the control of the technician class operator? Okay, the foreign station must be one with which the U.S. has a third-party agreement. If you let your friend talk on your ham radio with your license, that's called third-party traffic. In the U.S., that's fine. You have to announce third-party traffic. You have to use your call sign, but you can let your friend talk on the radio. Some countries allow third-party traffic from the United States, and some do not. And there's a list to be aware of that. If you're going to do long-distance third-party traffic, you need to be aware of which countries allow it, which ones do not. It's on the FCC website. It's called a third-party agreement. Always check. All right. And there's about 40 or 50 countries that do allow third-party traffic. Kind of fun to talk long distance. Okay. Third-party traffic. Okay, we talked about third-party traffic. CO4. When are you allowed to operate your amateur station in a foreign country? Okay, so 75 countries hold reciprocal operating agreements with the U.S. So you can operate, if you're going to a country, you can operate your radio with your license as long as they're on that list. Okay. Some countries only allow extra class operators to operate. And some countries do not allow any operation unless you sign up and get one of their licenses for their country. But there's a list. You can find that list on the FCC website also. All right. Once again, we're going through Gordo's Technician book. It's a really good book. I teach this class often, and I like the format, and it's good information presented in a logical fashion as well. We're on page 49. The question number is T1, CO6. From which of the following locations may an FCC licensed amateur station transmit in addition to places where FCC regulates communications? Okay, where can they transmit? From any vessel or craft located in international waters and documented or registered in the United States. So if you're on a United States registered ship, you may ask the captain if you can transmit. If he says yes, he or she, then you may operate your radio on board the ship following FCC rules for your country, the United States, in international waters. You may also do that from an aircraft. You must get the captain's permission. Once a year, one day a year, you may talk to military on ham frequencies during the Armed Forces Day communications test, just one day a year. Time are allowed to talk to the military. All right, that ends the call sign section. Doing okay? Let's see what's next. Next section is control operator. We're on page 51, Gordo's Technician Class book. Excuse me. There are 19 sections altogether to get through this material. We're on section 3. Right. When a ham station goes on the air and begins transmitting, there must always be a control operator responsible for the transmissions. All stations. When when is an amateur station permitted to transmit without a control operator? The answer is never. Never. All right. Who made a station licensee? That would be me, with my station right here, even if it's this little HT. It's my station. It's my call sign. Who may a station licensee designate to be the control operator of an amateur station? If I hand this station to my friend and he has a call sign, I've designated him to be the control operator. Okay? All right, so anybody with a ham radio license, that's the answer. That is only a person for whom an amateur operator primary station licensing grant appears in the FCC database. It's got to have a ham radio license. It must appear in the database. Could be a reciprocal agreement with somebody from another country also. All right, that makes sense? Okay, if we look at B01, who may be the control operator of a station communicating through an amateur satellite? Okay, satellite. Any amateur whose license privileges allow them to transmit on the uplink frequency for the satellite, which is VHF or UHF, very high frequency or ultra high frequency. That's the answer. So a technician class operator can operate satellites. Almost all of them. Okay. Who must designate the station control operator? The station control operator can be designated by the station licensee. This is my station. This is my license. I'm the station licensee. I can make you the control operator as long as you have a ham license. Now, if I do that and you get in trouble, we're both in trouble. Okay? We're both in trouble because I'm still the station licensee and my friend is the control operator. If they make a mistake, we're both in trouble. The question reads, when the control operator is not the station licensee, who's responsible for the operation of the station? And the answer is the control operator and the station licensee are equally responsible. You'll probably see that question on the test. All right. T1E04, bottom of page 52. What determines the transmitting privileges of an amateur station? And that is going to be the class of operator license held by the control operator. So remember, I'm the station licensee, you're the control operator. So when you take my radio, you can operate it only within your own license class privileges. You can't use my license class privileges. All right. When, under normal circumstances, may a technician class licensee be the control operator of a station operating in an exclusive extra class license segment of the band? So when can a technician operate in an extra class license? You can probably guess not, never, at no time. Okay, it's out of his license class. Must stay within your class band privileges. All right, EO5, T1 EO5, what is an amateur station control point? Right, a control point is the spot where you have complete capabilities to turn the equipment on, shut it off in case of a malfunction. Every ham radio station is required to have a control point. Okay, working our way through the control section. E09, top of page 54. What type of control is being used when the control operator is at the control point? And it's called local control. I have a hold of this thing and it's in my hand. There's a power button. There's a PTT, a push to talk, and some channel selectors and all sort of things. Local control. Under what type of control do APRS network digipeaters operate? APRS is Automatic Packet Repeater System. And it is a computer basically hooked to a little control box and a radio, and the computer keys the radio. Not me personally, but the computer does. And that is called automatic control. Automatic control. Okay? Which of the following is an example of automatic control? Okay. Which of the following? A repeater operation. So a repeater up on a mountaintop is an automatically controlled station. Which of the following is an example of a remote control as defined in Part 97? Part 97 is where all of our rules and regulations are put. It's the FCC document, Part 97. Okay? So which of the following is an example of remote control as defined in Part 97? The answer is operating the station over the internet. I can take my radio and connect it to a local radio here close by that's hooked across the internet to another radio. And when I talk on it, everybody can hear me along the way. That's called operating the station over the internet, remote control. Pretty simple, huh? Okay. 11. Who does the FCC presume to be the control operator of an amateur station unless documentation to the contrary is in the records? Okay, the answer is the station licensee. If one of my radios does something wrong, I'm responsible. If I let a friend operate my radio with his ham license and he operates the radio incorrectly, I can be responsible for him, for his actions. Okay? Both of us, but probably I'm also included in that. The station licensee is presumed to be the control operator. That's why you want to put in your log, your station log, if you let somebody operate your station for a while. Put it in your log, and you'll have a record of that. All right. Top of page 55. In which of the following circumstances may the control operator of an amateur station receive compensation for operating the station? Remember we talked about no commercial activity, no compensation. Well, a teacher is teaching a ham radio class and demonstrates ham radio. It's getting paid to teach. That's the exception. Teachers can get paid to operate ham radios. That's about it. Okay? So the precise answer is when the communication is incidental to classroom instruction at an educational institution. That's the answer you're going to see on the exam. All right. Let's see here. We are on T1F10 on page 55. Who is accountable should a repeater inadvertently retransmit communications that violate the FCC rules? So a repeater is up on the mountain. It's under automatic control. If every time somebody made a mistake on the repeater, if the repeater owner was held accountable, there wouldn't be many repeaters for very long. Okay, so the answer is the control operator of the originating station is responsible. So if I talk on a repeater and I make a mistake, maybe I don't send my ID every 10 minutes, the repeater operator is not going to be responsible for my mistake. I'm the one responsible. Okay, so the control operator is responsible if a repeater inadvertently retransmits a violation. All right? Otherwise, nobody'd want to put a repeater up. Okay, that's the control section. That's through the control section. Let's see here. All right, this section is on 57. Hoping this is useful. We're going to try this. Maybe a good touch-up for some of my students. also. Not going through every word, every question. We're kind of going through the topics verbally here. Minding the rules. All right. This is a net that you might hear in the background. There's hundreds of runners running through the mountains at night, and a lot of hands are watching the course to make sure that they are safe. All right, minding the rules. We're on 57. T1A03 is our question number. What part of the FCC regulations contains the rules governing amateur radio? I mentioned Part 97. That's exactly what it is. Part 97 governs amateur radio. You can download Part 97 from the FCC's website if you want some very exciting reading. Just kidding. All right. What, if any, are the restrictions concerning transmission of language that may be considered indecent? Absolutely nothing indecent or obscene is allowed in ham radio. It is not allowed. End of story. Okay? Prohibited. Prohibited in the law book. All right. Which of the following is an FCC rule regarding power levels in the amateur bands under normal non-distress circumstances? Always run the minimum amount of power required to make the contact. It's okay to turn the power up a little bit if you need to, but always try to make the minimum amount of power. Make sure batteries last longer too. Okay, T1A11, we're on 58. When is willful interference to another radio station permitted? Guess what? At no time. It's never acceptable. Intentionally interfering with another station is against the law. All right. T1A04. Which of the following meets the FCC definition of harmful interference? Harmful interference. Okay, this is it. That which seriously degrades, obstructs, or repeatedly interrupts the radio communication service operating in accordance with the radio regulations. Okay, that's the answer. If you have an amateur operator repeatedly transmits on a frequency that's already in use, that's called harmful interference, and it is against the law. We're secondary users in many of our bands that we get to use, secondary users, which means we want to be careful not to interfere with the primary users that may be radio navigation, for example. The question is, which of the following services are protected from interference from amateur signals under all circumstances? Keep in mind, we're sharing the frequency. We're secondary users. The answer is radio navigation services. I want to make sure we don't interfere with radio navigation on the bands that we share. Okay? What's the meaning of the term broadcasting in the FCC rules for amateur service? You may not transmit directly to the public. You can only transmit to other hams. We cannot transmit directly to the public. That's called broadcasting. It is against the law in Part 97. All right, D12. Under which of the following circumstances may an amateur radio station engage in broadcasting? What did I just say? Can never do broadcasting. Except when transmitting code practice, information bulletins, or transmissions necessary to provide emergency communications. All right. For emergency communications, an amateur radio station may engage in broadcasting. Exceptions to every rule. Almost. T1D09 on top of page 60. Under which of the following circumstances are amateur stations authorized to transmit signals relating to broadcasting, program production, or news gathering, assuming no other means is necessary? Or no other means is available, I'm sorry. Only where such communications directly relate to the immediate safety of human life or protection of property. So life or property. That's it. Secret codes or ciphers, scrambling, not allowed in ham radio. Never allowed. Okay? The exception is only when transmitting control commands to space stations or radio control craft. That's it. That's the only exception. Radio control craft or transmitting control commands to space stations. Otherwise, no encryption or scrambling. DO4, bottom of 60. What's the only time an amateur station is authorized to transmit music? Generally, music is not allowed at all. But answer A, when incidental to an authorized retransmission of manned spacecraft communications. You may hear NASA sending music to the space station. That's it. That's the only time. You're going to be real careful about music in the background, too. If you're transmitting and there's someone playing music in the other room, if the ham can hear the music, they will definitely call you out and ask you to be careful about the music. All right, T1D05. When may amateur radio operators use their stations to notify other amateurs of availability of equipment for sale? Remember, no commercial activity, but there oftentimes is a swap net, weekly swap net out on the air. If you want to buy and sell ham radio equipment, and that isn't your primary business, that's okay. The answer is when the equipment is normally used in an amateur station and such activity is not conducted on a regular basis. Okay, so if you own a ham radio store, you probably don't want to sell on the air. But if you like to buy and sell ham gear and you can find a swap net, jump on it, and you can do that. As long as you don't do ham radio hardware for a business, then you'll probably be okay. Swap nets are fun to listen to. All right, T1, F13. When must the station licensee make the station and its records available for FCC inspection? Anytime they knock on the door, at any time upon request by an FCC representative. All right? If they come to your house and want to see your station, maybe there's a problem with it. They want to see it, you got to let them in and show it to them. All right. What may result when correspondence from the FCC is returned as undeliverable? So you got to keep your address set in the FCC system, just like you would your driver's license. If you change your address, make sure you update your FCC license. If they send you a letter and it's returned undeliverable, they could cancel your license. Okay? Revocation of the station license or suspension of the operator license. So that's not good. Not only that, but you probably don't know it, and you're operating now without a license possibly. So it's a double whammy. Just make sure your address is always good. All right, let's see. We're through the rules. Let's call this part 1 and see how well this works, and we'll pick up on page 63 next. So appreciate you listening. We'll see if this is a good format for my local groups here that I work with, and anyone else as well. 7-3, which means best regards from Jim, AAG6IF in California tonight. It is November 13th right now, so a little past midnight. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it.